Great evening.
Great evening.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Dr. Sean J. Harris here with Generational Wealth Academy. Great evening to everybody. Listen, I wanted to come on tonight and talk about building successful, high-income producing children. So as you guys see here tonight, I want to talk about children will perform to their level of exposure. Now, that's very important because many times we've been brought up or reared to believe that children are to be seen and not heard. But here's what I found. When we do that, it becomes a detriment to our children as far as their capability of learning at the highest level possible. Let me unpackage that a little bit. Say, for an example, a child is like a blank canvas. So we have a blank canvas and we have a paintbrush. Everything we do and or say or expose that child to is like a swipe of the paintbrush. So if in fact we say negative things such as you're no good, you're not going to amount to anything, you're just like your dad, you're just like your mom, we're saying negative things to that child, well, those are strokes of the paintbrush on that canvas. But just the opposite takes place. If we're instilling good, we're reinforcing positive affirmations, that too will become paint stripes on the canvas. So what happens is in about 3 years, we step back because kids, they develop their self-images between the ages of 3 and 5. So by the time that child turns 5 years old, we're able to step back from that canvas and take a look. Did we paint a Picasso or did we paint a nightmare? So this is going to be based on what we're telling the kids, what we're exposing them to, and what we continuously reinforce in those kids. So what I want to talk about is financial literacy for starters. Let's do an exercise. Parlez-vous français? Habla español? Konnichiwa. See, I just spoke 3 different languages. And if you don't speak those languages, if I submerge you in those lands, well, you're going to have a hard time coping if you don't speak those languages. So the same would hold true for financial literacy. If we don't speak the language of finances, how well could we do in the land of finances? So that's one of the key things we want to do. But here's the important part about that. We want to teach kids about financial literacy early in life. We don't want to wait until you're in middle school. We don't want to wait until you're in high school, or forbid, we wait to college to start teaching about financial literacy. See, one thing about adulting, we don't want to wait to teach our kids adult things when they become adults. You want to start teaching them the fundamentals beforehand. Kennedy and Caden, I teach them how to drive now, 12 and 13. So when they're 15 and 16, getting their learner's permit and driver's license, they're well versed at being well acclimated behind the wheel, and it's not a new project that we're just now starting at age 15 or 16. So the same thing with finances. We want to start teaching our kids about financial literacy at an early age. So it's important that we invest in our children's education and their skill sets. So there's 3 types of education, because I think a lot of times people get misconstrued on which or what type of education is the most important. So pretty much, if you're my age or older, I definitely know you were probably brought up with the mantra of go to school, get good grades, go get a good job, and everything will be happily ever after. But we got to realize there's 3 types of education. The first type of education is what's known as a scholastic or an academic education. With a scholastic education or academic education, this is where we learn the basic fundamentals of education, such as reading, writing, arithmetics. This teaches us to get a job. Therefore, we're in a position now where we exchange our time for someone else's money. So the second type of education is what's called a professional education. like me, like many of you watching this, you guys are professionals where you may have to have continuing education. Perhaps you're a doctor, you're an engineer, you're in real estate, you're in whatever profession is that you may need continuing education. So professional education also hones in on a skill set. So if we're in the medical field, of course, we need a elevated level of education. So these are the two types of educations that are taught in our traditional school systems. Notice I said there's three types of education. The third type isn't taught in traditional schools. It's usually self-taught, and you have to figure out this on your own, and that's called the financial education. This is where we start really learning about money, the workability of money, the intricate details of how money works, the relationship with money. How about this? The money rules. There are laws to money. If we break those laws, just like if you break a traditional law in your society, you got to pay the price. Money is a relational thing. Once you have the proper relationship with money, you understand money, you can't keep it off of you. See, money attracts to those who know what to do with it. So when people say, Sean, I just never can seem to have any money, it's because it's a universal law. So it's a money law that knows that you don't know how to take care of money. So it will always avoid you. It's like if we were in an abusive relationship, that person would tend to always shy away or run away from you or ultimately leave you. Well, the same thing with money. But if we take care of money and we respect it and we do cool, good things with it, we can't keep it off of us. You will have that law of attraction. There's a lot of spiritual and universal laws that apply to money, which is a whole nother talk. But we have to be able to invest in our kids' skill sets. We have to be able to start honing in and figure out what is it that they're good at from the beginning. And then you start fertilizing that. You oversaturate that with nutrients, love, care, and finances to be able to get them to that point where they want to be. So as adults, as parents, we have to set a strong example to show the kids what it is that they need to start gearing up towards. So what I want to talk about tonight is being able to, and I wanted to unpackage it with that preface to give you a foundation where I want to go here tonight. But I want to talk about being able to create children who can create strong incomes. Now, how do we do that? You guys know Kenny and Kaden run very successful businesses. So there was a process put in place in order to do that. So what I want to do is I want to kind of walk you through the genesis of me making this particular video. Kaden has a career day coming up this Friday at a local school in the area. Now, before I even go, I already know beforehand that there's going to be a law enforcement vehicle there. There's going to be a fire truck there. There's going to be perhaps a MARTA bus, a local transit bus, perhaps another civil service such as a trash truck or a truck driver, something to that magnitude. So as I'm talking about here, children perform to the level of their exposure. So if we only expose them to those particular professions, which are necessary. I come from a civil service background. I was a deputy sheriff and a police officer for many years. It's very important, it's needed. But again, if that is the highest level of exposure, we can only expect our children to attain that level of result. So it's important that we start acclimating them to different things, different levels of exposure. So that really bothers my spirit, particularly when I go to schools that have children that look like my children, to see that that's the most that they're being exposed to. There's so many different professions out here that we can expose our kids to. And I want to just kind of go over this. I was looking at some information earlier today where that was important. Let me shift screens here. So here, this was a career day we did not too long ago. This was probably like 3 weeks ago. As you see, the typical fire truck, teaching kids about firefighting. Again, it's a necessary and noble profession. However, if that's the most we're exposing our kids to, that's going to be the most that they can grow to. So it's important that we give them different exposures. Here's another, just need to reach and grab something here. Here's another profession. This was at a different career day. As you see, they were talking about truck driving. They were also talking about being a local transit bus driver. Again, all necessary positions and jobs, but again, if that's the most that we expose them to. We can only expect a certain result. So let me progress here. This was that very first one I showed you, also with the fire truck, and at this one, they too had a MARTA bus there. You also see that they brought the police department as well. Now, the thing that really threw a monkey wrench in this scenario for me and really struck a chord in my spirit was, if you look between the bus and the police SWAT vehicle, you'll see a car that's operating on hydraulics. Now, at best, maybe this person was showing the ins and outs of hydraulics. I would have used a different vehicle if that was going to be the case, or I would have just brought a hydraulic model. But the thing that was so heartbreaking here, as a parent, as a business leader, was to see that so many of the kids gravitated towards this vehicle. They wanted to see the car go up and down and bounce and do all the stuff they see it do in videos. And it was really sad to see that that type of entertainment would appeal to the kids, but they weren't interested in the hydraulics or the career path of hydraulics. They just see a car bouncing up and down. So that was very disturbing to me. So I did a little research and I wanted to show you guys. This is a cat, of course, a lion. Isn't it cool to be able to expose your kids to be able to do a CAT scan on a cat? I know that's a little pun on words, but there are different professions out here that we need to expose our kids to. Check it out. Did you ever think that a python can go through a CAT scan, get a CT scan, or literally a PET scan? Here's the back end of the lion. Here we go. That's not a cheetah. I think that's a leopard. Python again. A giraffe. Come on, see, these are not things that our kids are being exposed to on a daily basis. So again, if they never are exposed to these things, how could they ever know that they exist? That makes sense? Let's see here. We got a llama or sheep or something here. He's all strapped up pretty good to go, ready to go through to get his CAT scan. Here we have a primate. We have a gorilla, looks like here. Now, of all things, who would imagine a turtle or tortoise can go through a CAT scan machine? But see, these are the cool things that we got to be able to expose the kids to. They got to be able to see cool, different, interactive things that they can do to have professions and careers. Now, this is what really appealed to me. An average PET scan or CT technologist salary here in Georgia is $96,000. That's just average. That's not even saying the top earners. That's just the average salary. So as you see here, it can go anywhere between 82K and 111K. Just being able to perform PET and CT scans on animals. So let's take it a step further. That machine has to be worked on. So check this out. What if we expose our kids to being a medical imaging repair technician, where the salary is $108K? We're talking about a monthly payment of $9,000 a month. Those are the top earners. But again, if we never expose our kids to this type of career path, how will they ever know it exists? They would only think that they're eligible and qualified to be civil service. We're not showing them pathways or gateways to be able to enter into different professions. So again, the person who's actually doing the technician, the CAT scan, they're making pretty good coin. But just imagine the person who has to fix the machine. They're making even better coin. But again, these are things we don't teach our kids about, the back office of things. They may say the end result, but you have to expose them to the behind the scenes part of particular industries. So it's super important that we do that. So let's go a little step further. Let's now talk about the veterinarian, but not just a regular veterinarian that works at your local PetSmart or something like that. Let's talk about a veterinarian who perhaps have their own business or work for a zoo. What you see here, the pay could be anywhere from $91,000 and up. That's just here in Georgia. I can only imagine that working as a veterinarian for a zoo in New York or California, that salary is going to be higher than that by far. Okay, so those are some of the things we got to expose kids to. How about being a veterinarian? Now, it's one thing to be a dentist. I have a friend of mine who's a dentist. He makes very good money as a human dentist. but being a veterinarian dentist makes way more money than just a typical dentist. You know, he was telling me a lot of cool stories. He does part-time work at the zoo. He makes more money part-time at the zoo than he does full-time as a dentist. Let that marinate in your mind for a second. As a veterinarian dentist, he makes more part-time than he does full-time as a human dentist. So as you see here, as a top earner, we're talking 2.25. That's $250,000 a year as a veterinarian dentist. But again, go ask your kids, go ask your grandkids, have they ever heard of a veterinarian dentist? Have they ever been exposed to that? He would tell me so many cool stories about how he would be in rooms and he's working on a lion, and all of a sudden the lion eye pops open and then it closes right back. How many times he's been in a room? I think he did one on a hippopotamus one time. Can you imagine doing dental work on a hippo? He did work on a primate one time. The primate actually started coming to a little bit, and he said that was like his first time really working on an animal. So he like darted out of the room. Everybody else just kind of laughed at him. But just to be able to have that type of exposure. How many people as adults, you've never heard of a veterinarian dentist before? Think about it. They got teeth. They have to be cared for, because just like humans, if we don't take care of our teeth, it could lead to heart disease. So can you imagine losing an elephant, losing a giraffe, losing a lion, losing a llama because of bad dental hygiene that causes heart problems? Here at the Atlanta City Zoo, we're always on a loan program with the pandas with China. So you know they have to have top-notch medical care. So that's something, again, that we can expose kids to that we don't commonly think about on a daily basis. How about being a biochemist? I talk about that a lot when I travel around the globe, talking about different industries that we have to expose kids to increase their financial literacy acumen. Well, how about being a biochemist? How much does a biochemist make? You see here, and these are Georgia stats. So the stats are going to be higher salaries in different parts of the country. But here in Georgia, we're talking 102K, and that was the stats back in 2001. So I have to believe that that's increased over the years, especially with the onset of COVID a couple of years back. So a biochemist is really in high demand, and that salary cap has got to be increased, I'm sure, by now. So a biochemist, expose that to our kids and our grandkids. How about being an architect? Think about all the cool buildings around where someone had to design those. My uncle, he passed away many years ago, but as a teenager, my grandmother purchased a pad for him, like a sketchbook, and pencils and all kind of angles and rulers and compasses and stuff like that. And he would build and design the same buildings you see now in Dubai. He was structuring out and building out buildings just like that back in the 70s and 80s. And he never took any professional schooling for this. This was just stuff in his head. So just imagine if he had followed that pursuit and went to architecture school and started really honing in on that. But look here, just to start and pay for a good architect in Atlanta, $130K. But when you really, and that's working for a firm. Just imagine when you own your own practice and now you're doing custom designs for homes. Guys, here in Atlanta, we got some nice homes here in Atlanta. So imagine people who are getting homes built out in Atlanta, just a regular 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. If you're going to get plans mapped out by an architect, minimum you're going to pay is $50,000. But something like that, you're more looking at $80,000 to $90,000 just for the blueprints. Okay, so there's a lot of money that we got to expose these kids to this kind of stuff. Okay, you guys know DJ. This is our son, DJ. He's 19 years old. He's serving in the United States Air Force as an aerospace medic tech. You see him here doing practice here. But let me explain what happens here. DJ went from high school straight to the Air Force. He was selected to be in the Air Force and selected to be an aerospace tech, medic tech. I'm thinking about my profession. I was in the Air Force. I was an aerospace propulsion specialist. But DJ is an aerospace medic tech. So here's the cool thing about that. DJ was taught top notch. You can't get better training than in the military. He was taught how to be both a nurse and an EMT simultaneously. So he learned what he learned in 4 months. The same training he would have learned would have taken someone in the civilian sector 18 months to do. Anywhere from 12 to 18 months, upwards to 2 years. He learned this in 4 months. And as you see, he has hands-on practical experience, OJT, on-the-job training. So DJ was placed in the hospital working, doing what he does now full-time after 4 months of training. He continues getting the hands-on experience. I remember his first day in the hospital, he watched childbirth. A couple weeks after that, he experienced a gunshot wound where a person was actually shot in the head. And DJ was able to help administer service to this guy. The guy lived. So you see the difference of exposure. And here's the cool thing about that. The United States Air Force funded his education to learn that. While DJ is in the Air Force serving, if he decides, hey, listen, I want to learn to be a dentist while I'm in here, the United States Air Force will pay for his dental school while he's in the Air Force, on top of his professional profession as being a medic tech. Now, here's the cool part. This is the kicker. When he gets out of the Air Force, he still has academic funds available to him. So let's say he decided, I want to be an architect. Then he can go to school to be an architect after he gets out of the military. That's completely, fully funded by the United States Air Force. Not a penny comes out of his pocket or ours. So now he's in a position where he has 3 hard skill sets, all creating over 6 figures starting pay. And that's if you want to work a job. Because he has parents who are entrepreneurs, we'll teach him how, if he wants to go in any of those professions, how to build a business model around that. So now that income will double, if not triple. Again, it's because we exposed him to that. I'm a United States Air Force war vet. Tara's a United States Naval war vet. We've been there. We've gone through the education aspects. We've gone through the tactical training to understand, by leveraging a skill set that was taught to us by the United States military, we now can transfer those skills in our own companies that we run. Plus, we're able to expose DJ to an amazing career, and he is having an absolute ball and blast in the United States Air Force. So again, it's all about exposure. Let's talk about engineering. There are different types of engineer. I think when people hear about engineer, they just think of a basic engineer. Whereas you see here, we have electrical engineers. We have mechanical engineers. We have civil engineers. But more importantly, we have something called petroleum engineers. A lot of you adults listening to this, you probably have never heard of a petroleum engineer. That is a very lucrative profession. Let me stick a pin in that for a second when I come back. It just made me think. There's a profession called high wire walkers. I learned about this profession about maybe 10, 12 years ago. But in rural places or out in very mountainous terrain, you still have high power wires that go through mountain ranges. There are electrical engineers and electrical technicians that are paid. Starting pay is $225,000 to do the same thing that you see your local Georgia Power guys do on the pole. It's just that they do this way up in the air. They're actually helicoptered into the mountains on a power wire, and they sit there and do work, maybe 8, 10, 12 hours before the helicopter comes to pick them back up. That's called high wire electrical technician. Check that out. That's something you might want to expose your kids to. See, these are not the things I'm talking about. These are not the professions that's coming into schools doing career days. You have got to demand better for your kids and their schooling and the exposure that they get. Go to the principal, demand that they get higher quality professional career paths introduced to the kids in the school. It's up to you as parents. You got to be the one to go and tell them, hey, look, I don't ever see any engineers coming in here. I don't ever see any biochemists coming in here. It's up to us as parents to do that. But let's talk about petroleum engineers. Petroleum engineers make $300,000 a year. And just think, this is a profession 90% of the people watching this have never heard of. So again, it's important that we teach our kids about different professions out there. Now, watch this. That petroleum engineer, his education will be less than an education to be a doctor, a medical doctor. A medical doctor, as you see here, these are stats in Atlanta, and I know they can be a little low because I know doctors who do make a little bit more than this, but the starting salaries based on experience here in Georgia, 1 to 2 year doctor, 115K. It takes more than 10 years working, according to this stat, that, and this is, I got this reference from Indeed. It takes more than 10 years of working as a doctor, as an MD, to clear 2.25. But the petroleum engineer makes 300,000, and they can do that within their first 1 or 2 years on the job. Now, keep in mind, think about the medical cost, the educational cost to become a medical doctor. And it takes you 10 years just to make $250,000. That person's educational tab is well over that 2.25. I know many doctors, and they all tell me, yeah, I spent a whole lot of money, $500,000 just to go to school. Well, according to this stat, it's going to take you 20 years just to pay off your student loan. But going to school to be a petroleum engineer, the cost of the education is only less than half of what it takes to be a medical doctor. So again, we are always taught on cultural beliefs, oh, you got to be a doctor, you got to be an attorney, but we're not fully exposed to the higher or highest income professions that are out there for us. So it's super important that we expose kids. So that's the whole point of my talk here today, is I want to share with you about exposing kids to various professions, to be able to do the cool things, to be able to have the professions that will really give them the fair advantage. Okay? Mindset creates everything that your kids do. If they don't have a proper mindset, again, they're going to only be capped out to certain things. This is one of the best-selling books that I wrote. This is, I have a book, and this is the workbook manual that goes with it. It's called 15 Ideas Wealthy Parents Teach Their Kids That the Poor Don't. I share with you what we were teaching our kids about finances, about business, about financial literacy. It's things like that you have to really take advantage of to be able to get the maximum result from your kids' growth. So guys, that's what I wanted to share with you here tonight, is to give you some concepts and ideas to think about, to be able to expose your kids to something a little different in life. Because again, always remember, our kids will rise to the level of exposure that we give them. All right, guys, I'm Dr. Sean J. Harris. Make impact and make money while you're doing it.